Dear flight crews, you are about to operate the Leap-1A engine on the Airbus A320neo family. As this is a completely new motor, CFM wants to share with you some nice-to-know visual clues which will help you understand what you may encounter during the pre-flight visual inspection of your engines.
These tips aim at avoiding unnecessary technical actions and delays. Knowing what you could see on the engine will help you build your Leap-1A experience and operate it efficiently from day one.
Let's go for a short Leap-1A visual tour, ready to fly.
In front of the engine, some details may catch your attention, especially on the front spinner. The fan blade platform edges, the fan blade tips, on the outlet guide vanes, and the fan abradable. You may observe some paint peeling on the front spinner. The paint peeling is due to FOD or erosion. With paint peeling on your front spinner, the engine is perfectly serviceable. You can go. On the fan blade platform edges, you may observe some irregularities. Those irregularities are due to the manufacturing process. With fan blade platform irregularities, the engine is perfectly serviceable. You can fly. On the fan blade tips, you may observe some white dust. This dust comes from the abradable and is due to the normal breaking in process of new production engines. With this white dust, the engine is perfectly serviceable. You can fly. A close look at the OGVs may show you some paint peeling. This paint peeling is due to the natural erosion of the engine. With paint peeling on the OGVs, the motor is perfectly serviceable. You can fly.
On the light gray color of the fan abradable, you will notice black rubbing marks. Those marks are due to the normal breaking in process of new production engines. With those black marks, the engine is perfectly serviceable. You can fly. Looking at the fan abradable, you may notice some cracks. As long as those cracks are axial cracks that just look like a fine axial line on the surface of the abradable, the engine is perfectly serviceable. You can go. When you have a close look at the fan abradable, you may notice some flaking in the material. This flaking, or presence of small craters, is due to the presence of little air bubbles in the material or foreign object damages, also called FOD. If the surface of the missing material is larger than a quarter of the surface of a credit card, or if you can see the structural carbon fiber of the composite fan case, ask a technician. The technician will refer to the aircraft maintenance manual to decide if the engine is serviceable. If the surface of the crater is smaller than a quarter of the surface of a credit card, and you do not see the structural carbon fiber of the casing, the engine is perfectly serviceable. You can go. On the fan abradable, you may notice some spots and fills. Those spots and fills are the result of a repaired crater in the abradable. With spots and fills, the engine is perfectly serviceable. You can go. Looking at the abradable just behind the fan, on the circumference, you may observe some pitting. This pitting is the result of encountering severe icing conditions. With these kinds of small impacts, the engine is perfectly serviceable. You can fly.
Looking at the engine from the rear, some details may catch your attention. Inside the center vent tube. Looking at the center vent tube, you will probably observe some coked oil with or without the presence of liquid oil. This oil, whatever its physical appearance, is normal and comes from the engine's air pressurization internal circuits. With liquid oil or coked oil in the center vent tube, the engine is perfectly serviceable. You can go.
Looking at the side of the engine, some details may catch your attention, especially around the drain masts and below the drain masts. The Leap-1A is equipped with 3 drain masts. Around those masts, you may observe some oil marks. If there is no visible oil leak, just oil marks, the engine is perfectly serviceable. You can fly. Sometimes you will notice, below the drain masts, small oil or fuel puddles. These puddles come from the different drain masts. With no visible oil or fuel leak, just a small puddle, the engine is perfectly serviceable. You can fly.
In case of an unsafe condition of the fan cowl, some warnings should catch your attention. The fan cowl loss prevention flag could be visible. with an abnormal spacing between the fan cowl and the rest of the nacelle. The fan cowl loss prevention flag should be deployed if the most forward latch is not locked. Furthermore, if 2 of the 3 latches are not locked, there will be a fan cowl ECAM message displayed in the cockpit. While the engine start switch is in the normal position, you will have a memo displayed. As soon as the start switch is rotated in the crank or ignition start position, an ECAM warning will be displayed. In any of those situations, a corrective action has to be done before you can safely fly the aircraft.
On the ground, during a manual rotation or natural windmilling, the Leap-1A sounds different from the CFM 56-5B. Waiting for the aircraft reaching the apron before your flight, during the engine's shutdown sequence, you may hear a pressurized air noise. This noise is due to the opening of the variable stator vanes, also called VSVs, and the closure of the variable bleed valves, known as VBVs. This noise is normal. The engine is serviceable, you can fly. Unlike the CFM 56-5B, you will no longer hear any clicking noise when the Leap-1A fan is spinning slowly. The engine is perfectly serviceable. You can go. In certain circumstances, for a short period of time, a grinding noise might be heard. This noise comes from the low-pressure turbine blades rubbing on their seals. The motor is perfectly serviceable. You can go.
If for any reason, with the engine spinning slowly during the walk-around, you would like to stop the fan, do not stop it by grabbing one of the fan blades. Due to the size and shape of the blades, grabbing a blade could make it twist and gouge into the fan abradable. It could also hurt you. If you want to stop the fan, it is recommended to use your hands on the front spinner to slow down the fan until it stops.
Looking at the fan blade tips, you will notice a slight crease at the junction between the titanium leading edge and the body of the blade. This crease, more or less visible, exists on any blade and is due to the manufacturing process. The engine is perfectly serviceable. You can fly. A last word regarding the abradable rubbing. The color of the rubbing varies from black to light gray. Furthermore, most of the rubbing will be located, although it may not be limited to, the 3 and 9 o'clock position. Whatever the color or the location of the rubbing, the engine is perfectly serviceable. You can go.
Dear flight crews, the engine is now yours. Take care of it for a safe and long time on wing.
With no delay or cancellation. Enjoy your new Leap-1A.